Good day, this is Dr. Garcia, and I will be discussing some important concepts with regards to creating a program planning for healthcare. So this is meant to be as a primer because this lecture will not exhaustively discuss all the concepts regarding program planning, but it will help you prepare for your activity in community medicine. As you all know, us doctors have several roles. So aside from being a good clinician, you're also expected to be a good manager, leader, social mobilizer, and researcher. In terms of community medicine, these are usually some of the roles or tasks that you may take on in those particular designations. And again, as a five-star physician, we are training you not to just be good clinicians, but also to be good members of society. So for this lecture, these are my objectives. So we will discuss the health planning cycle, specifically in the context of UHC and the national objectives for health, and hopefully you will be able to explain the steps from community diagnosis to program implementation using the concepts, differentiate between goals, SMART objectives, and indicators, which are part of your program plan, identify strategies aligned with the WHO Health Systems Framework or the building blocks, and identify and describe some stakeholder roles in community-based health programs. You will also be outlining the components of a monitoring and evaluation plan. First, we go into planning models. So planning models are meant to guide you and are not strictly, how would you say, rules that you should follow in planning. So these are only some of the commonly used ones, and admittedly, some of the ones that might be asked during your board exam. So we will be discussing them here. And these serve as frames from which to build. So they are not the absolute structure themselves. They just provide it. There are many. They have common elements but different labels often, and they usually consist of the following steps. Okay, so we will see later on. Now, you should be guided by the three F's of program planning in selecting your particular model or some techniques or in designing your program. So, the three F's are your fluidity, meaning the steps should be sequential in a way. So, once one doing one action should lead to another, but they have to be adaptive as well. So they have to be flexible. So depending on the needs of your stakeholders, your plans may change so that they will be also functional or useful in improving the health conditions or the social conditions in that particular community. Now, what are the types of program plan? So these are the types of program plan in terms of the duration or the time element. So we have your short-term plans, which are usually those that are planned for 1 to 2 years of implementation, monitoring, and evaluation. So these are annual or biennial activities. You have your medium term, which is about 4 to 7 years, and usually corresponds to a term of office of a certain unit. And these include involve your medium term investments. For the long term, it's a minimum of 8 years and are sometimes utilize your prognostic planning. So these definitions are not that specific, but just to give you an idea of how you're going to plan in terms of, considering the time it takes for you to implement and fully achieve your outcomes. Now, are some of the DOH program planning models or some that are being employed right now, and I will be discussing some of them. First, we'll go on to your Proceed, proceed. So this is usually asked during the board exam. So your proceed is an acronym. So proceed stands for predisposing, reinforcing, and enabling constructs in education, ecological diagnosis, and evaluation. Whereas your proceed consists of policy, regulatory, and organizational constructs in educational and environmental development. So PRECEDE has five phases, specifically your social diagnosis and epidemiological diagnosis, behavioral environmental diagnosis, educational organizational diagnosis, and your administrative and policy diagnoses. So as you can see, PRECEDE basically means you have to assess and diagnose first, whereas your PROCEED consists of the phases that are involved in your actual implementation, evaluation, and your outcomes. Okay? So this is the proceed model. So if you notice here, phase 1 to 5 is from right to left, whereas your phase 6 to 9 is from left to right. And this is because of the overlap of the factors that are essential in each phase. So in phase 1, of course, you do your assessment up to phase 5 in terms of all the specific areas that you need to assess. And if you look at the middle, basically you're assessing the same variables that you're also checking or making changes to in the preceding phases or the proceed phases. So this is why the framework is presented as such. So it's a basically a process that is that can we say circular or cyclical in nature, wherein the end is also the beginning, which is a quality of life. Okay. Next, we have your MATCH, which is also an acronym, stands for Multi-Level Approach to Community Health. It was created by Simmons Morton and his colleagues in 1988 for the CDC as a framework to guide health promotion interventions at multiple levels. And it can be used to guide health promotion at one, two, or all levels. Okay? So it also has phases, so five phases. You start, of course, with goal selection and then go on to intervention planning, program development, implementation, preparation, evaluation. So by now, if you compare the two, your proceed, and match, you can now see similarities all as well in their phases and the activities that they may probably entail, right? So this is basically a socio-ecologic program planning model, and it emphasizes interventions again at multiple levels, focusing on only on individual behavior change. So this is mostly for health promotion. Next, we have your MAP. Again, an acronym stands for Mobilizing for Action Through Planning and Partnerships. It was made in 2001 by Nacho, again with the support of the CDC. It is a framework for assessing and addressing community health needs. Has been recently updated, to in 2023 to your MAP 2.0. Its goal is to achieve health equity with the assurance of the conditions for optimal health for all people. So it's a community-driven strategic planning process, and it aims again to improve community health developed by Nacho. It has actually six phases: no? Organizing for success, visioning for community assessments, identifying strategic issues, formulating goals and strategies, and an action cycle of planning, implementation, and evaluation. But the six can be um, lumped up into the three here identified in this particular diagram. Now let's go locally. So the LGU Health Planning in the Philippines is structured around the formation of local investment plans for health, or the LIPH, and annual operation plans, or the AOP, aligned with the current mandate, which is Ambisyon Natin 2040, the Philippine Development Plan, and the National Objectives for Health. Okay, so we have an administrative order, which is a DOH AO 2020-0022, which describes a participatory bottom-up process where the CHDs, or the community health developers, issue a call to plan. Okay, so we'll go into the planning models in detail. Now, just to compare with your match and map, so currently we have the local investment plan for health, which was mandated by the DOH AO 2020-022. And comparing it, its primary purpose is the medium-term costed LG Youth Health investment. So it's, again, since we are devolved, its target is the LGUs. Okay. I will not go into this in detail, so just look at the comparisons presented in this table, just to show you how the different models are the same and or different. Okay, so we also have the level of application, the lead actors, the theoretical orientation, and their use in relation to each other. So what is notable here is that your LIPH incorporates the map style assessments and match design interventions as specific investments. Okay, so there is an overlap, or there is a, let's say, a hybrid between the two. Okay? So this is another uh, planning model, which is the Healthy People 2010, sorry, a systematic approach to health formation. And it is a conceptual framework that links national health goals, measurable objectives, determinants of health, and health status. It is the logic behind the Healthy People 2010 initiative, and not actually like a plan itself. It's the framework that guides that initiative. So if you can see in the diagram, there are four elements, which are your goals, objectives, your determinants of health, and the health status of your people. So by now you can see the outcome is usually the same, which is an optimal health status for all. And you always start with a goal or objective. Now, the variables in the middle, uh, it differs from each planning model. No? Okay. Next up, we have the goal-oriented program planning, or the ZOP program planning. So it's a participatory objectives-oriented method for identifying, planning, and managing development projects using structured stakeholder workshops and a project planning matrix similar to a logical framework. So it was developed by German technical corporation companies or agencies in their aim to improve the quality and transparency of project planning. So this model basically was intended for general project planning or general program planning, not necessarily for health. So actually, you can use this for um, other objectives or other means. No, its main output is a planning matrix that links the goal, project purpose, the results, and the outputs, and the activities and inputs, and is used as a core element of project cycle management in many development projects. So it basically provides a structured basis for design, approval, implementation, monitoring, and when needed, replanning or rescuing stalled initiatives. Okay? So, for example, in a health project, stakeholders may use ZOP workshops in building a matrix that defines the overall development. Okay? And then by continually assessing and looking at where they are, they can it can guide implementation and monitoring. So they can pivot or they can restructure certain plans. Next, we have another planning model, which is your PERT CPM. So I know the diagram looks complicated and it's not necessarily related to healthcare, but this is just an example of how to do it. So it's a network-based project management approach. It basically breaks up a project into activities and maps their dependencies or their interrelation with each other while estimating activity duration and identifying critical paths, which are the longest sequence of activities that determines the minimum project completion time. So basically, you want to maximize the time it takes from planning to implementation. So by using the PERT CPM, you can look at processes that you can, for example, shorten so that you can achieve your outcome at a shorter time. Okay? So hence this diagram. So here, para siyang genogram in which you see the interrelation of your tasks and activities and see basically how one aspect affects the other, and then identify ways in which to streamline or make it more efficient. Here we have your intervention mapping, another planning model, and is based on basically the logical framework. No? So the steps again are pretty much the same. You identify your problem, and then your outcome, you create a plan, you produce that plan and implement and evaluate it. What you look at here is the cyclical nature of intervention mapping, wherein even if you reach a final step, you can always go back if there are things that were brought up during evaluation that you need to change. Now, what is health program planning now? No, based on the models that we've seen. So generally, it's the same. It's a systematic process of identifying specifically community health problems, defining goals, mobilizing resources to implement interventions. Now, planning is vital, especially in resource deprived or limited, or in cases where there are limited resources, such as in the Philippines. So it helps us ensure that we target the right problems with the most effective solutions. So given that we also have a devolved healthcare system wherein we are divided among several islands and municipalities, planning is essential on a national and local level. Okay? So just to give you a context, so there are several levels in which program planning exists or occurs. So that you have the national level, LGU, and the barangay level. No? So the national level is guided again by your legislation, specifically your UHC Act or your RA 11223 and your national objectives for health in setting priorities on a national scale. Then you have your LGU, and as mentioned, you have your LIPH or your local investment plan for health, which is a multi-year and a long-term plan, and your annual operation plan. So these are the specific documents that guide their activities. Now, on the barangay level, this is where you come in. You have community programs which target specific problems or diagnoses. But it should also feed into municipal or the local situational analysis. Now, the DOH-LGU planning cycle, as mandated or prescribed by AO 2020-0022, starts with a call to plan. So, there's a national guideline that is issued, and a situational analysis is then done. So, this is done in the LGUs, and then prioritization of problems, identify gaps, identify high risk areas, and then your strategy, which relates to formulation and costing, and your M&E or your monitoring and evaluation to track the progress of your plans. Now, this is a continuous cycle, not a unidirectional process, and it has feedback loops. And your community diagnosis data feeds directly into step 2. So, yung community diagnosis na gagawin nyo later on will come in with step 2 already because it's aligned with national or local health guidelines or plans. Okay, so just to show you the community health planning cycle, it's the same. So this is in general. So again, although it doesn't start with a national directive, no, but it always starts with an analysis or an assessment and ends with your evaluation. And again, the cycle is continuous and iterative, meaning it can change at any time or can be adjusted. Okay, so from community diagnosis to program planning, this is your task. So basically, you start same with the research. You start with data collection. You identify or state your problem, and then you identify your objectives and you prioritize, and you plan your methodology, your implementation. Okay. to achieve your outcomes. So your situational analysis primarily answers the question, where are we now? And is also known as your community diagnosis. So you look at primary and secondary data, your demographics, health statistics or health status, and the social determinant. So you can look at the records and you can interview, you can do surveys here. Okay. So in assessing the community and identifying problems, again, you review epidemiological data, assess social determinants such as your poverty, education, environment, or access to healthcare. You identify assets as well. So it doesn't just stop from looking at numbers and data and interviewing people. You identify also what you can use, what are the resources available, what are the assets or the local connections or networks that you can utilize in order to bring forth a good plan. And then, of course, you have to engage the community. So by doing your focus group discussions, key informant interviews, or your assemblies, okay, you are better able to assess and get a feel of what the community needs and who the community is. So where do we get data? So on a national level, you have your FHSIS, you have your community surveys as mentioned earlier, and your LGU or RHU records. So these are some of the things or databases that are accessible to you should you need them in your community diagnosis. But for you guys, you'll be basically be conducting a community survey. Okay. Once you've identified your problems, what you can use is a problem tree analysis. Okay. So it's a tool basically to identify root causes and effects of a core problem. So for example, your core problem is a high malnutrition rate. So you go about your community diagnosis, you identify malnutrition as a problem. So what are the possible causes based on your survey or your data? So you identified two causes, and you've also identified or you've also observed the effects on children. So basically, this problem tree is focused on children, but this can also branch out. Like, for example, long-term effects of high malnutrition or the economic effects. You can also do that. Okay? So it doesn't have to be this simplistic. It depends on your analysis of the problem as to its causes and its effects. Next, of course, when you identify problems, of course, you probably come up with a list such as what you did in your nominal group technique. But the question now is, which are you going to address first? Okay? So you look at the magnitude of the problem, the severity, feasibility, and the social concern as some of the variables or factors that you can probably consider. And please remember that, of course, we cannot solve everything at once, and hence the need to prioritize. Now, here is a criteria that you can use to assess some of the factors or variables that I mentioned earlier. So these are the criteria. So you have to look at the urgency. Um, does it cause death or disability immediately? And then you apply a certain scoring, whether it's high, medium, or low. The magnitude, whether it affects a majority of the population or just a part of it. Its feasibility in terms of addressing the problem. What are the implications? And how cost effective would it be to intervene, as well as the impact? Okay. So how do you do this? So this is an example of a criteria that you can use. Okay, so um, in terms of urgency, if it results in death, automatically it's high. Results in temporary disability, medium and low. If there is no significant effect, for example. Okay, and then they have the magnitude. You can also assess the availability of resources or technology to solve the problem. So you can classify those that can be treated in the health center, requires treatment in a tertiary center, okay, or a secondary hospital. What are the implications of inaction as well? Okay, and the cost effectiveness, meaning um, Does the treatment cost? This is in terms of the patient's capability to pay. Okay, so if it's a low treatment cost, average, or high treatment cost. All right. So this is an example of a prioritization matrix. So this is also one. So aside from the ones presented, yung high, medium, low, you can also score it as 1 to 10. So in terms of urgency, magnitude, feasibility, and its implications, you can score it. And then based on the total that you did, rank them. So this is actually what you also did in your NGT exercise. Okay. But take note also that when you do your program plans or prioritization, it must align with national objectives and your community preferences as well. Okay, next we go to actually formulating the program. So now you have your problems, you know what to address, you have your goal. Now, how do you set objectives? But first, let's compare what's a goal versus an objective. Again, a goal is a broad statement, whereas an objective is a specific target that is needed to reach that particular goal. And it should be guided by your SMART again. Okay, so it should be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. So when you state your objectives, it's the same. So for example, goal, again, is a broad long-term statement which can take about 5 to 10 years to address. For example, is reduce the burden of hypertension in community. And your specific objective, according to the SMART, is to decrease uncontrolled hypertension in adults age 40 plus by 20% by December 2027. Okay? Okay, here's another example of a SMART objective. Okay, so when you say you want to improve the nutrition of kids, that's not a good objective. So it's too vague. So you can also say to reduce the prevalence of underweight children among 0 to 5 years old in Barangay San Jose from 15 to 10%. Okay, now let's go to your strategy formulation, which answers the question, how do we get there? Basically involves developing interventions to address the root causes. So you do not address directly the problem, but the causes instead, so that the problem does not recur. Okay, so this can be in the form of service delivery. For example, your vaccination drives can be in the form of a policy or advocacy. Can be a resolution on smoking or a campaign or advocacy for healthy living. Can also be education. You do your mother's classes where you teach your mothers about feeding practices or nutrition. You give them a nutrition class, or it can also be environmental. So here it says construction of latrines for those that have poor sanitation. It can also be improvement of certain infrastructures like your drainage to prevent flooding in flood-prone areas. Now it should adhere with your WHO building blocks. All right. So, what are your building blocks? So, these are your governance, financing, workforce, information systems, your medicines or access to medicines, and your service delivery. Okay. So, how do we apply that here? So, for example, you're thinking about doing a program for hypertension. So, for the governance, you want to lobby for a sin tax or a healthy food ordinance. For financing, you look at your available PhilHealth Consulta packages. For the workforce, you want to, of course, increase the workforce that will be able to address this problem by training BHWs specifically, for example, on BP measurement or detection. For medicines, of course, you make them available or at least you make them accessible or you identify um, areas that have no access and then you give them access or identify certain places that they can get access to medicine. So you can either stock them at barangay health stations or you look at your other healthcare facilities in the area. And then for service delivery, you can create a service. For example, you can create Wellness Fridays wherein there's free screening and probably a Zumba or an aerobics class. Okay, so those are examples of how to apply the building blocks. Now, what's the difference, Doc, between strategies and activities? So strategies are usually broad, um, and it's the approach. So, for example, you want to do capacity capability building. So, what is your strategy? You train BHWs to manage hypertension cases. But what is or what are your activities in relation to the strategy? So these are your specific tasks. They are time bound and actionable. So the activities related to this strategy is, of course, you conduct training needs analysis, probably develop a curriculum, a 2-day workshop, or and conduct a post-training evaluation. So similar to your goals and objectives, so your strategy is a broader statement, and while your activity is a more specific, actionable statement. Okay, so this is an example of a strategic planning matrix. So taking into mind that you will be doing this, so your plan should be strategy based. So for example, your goal is like this, your objective should be stated as such, and then you identify strategies and activities, as well as resources and who is responsible. So in relation to your strategic planning matrix, so this is an example of the table that you can fill out. So you identify your critical issue, you state your goal, your objective, you identify a strategy, and then you identify the activities that you need to do in order to fulfill that strategy. So identify activities, what is your target, time frame, what resources do you need, who will be responsible, and what are the output or the evaluation indicators. Now, in resource planning, consider the 4 M's, which is your manpower, who will do it or who is involved, the money, what sources of budget you have, your materials, what supplies do you need? Do you need vaccines? Do you need educational materials? Do you need weighing scales? And then your methods, okay, meaning what protocols we follow, what guidelines, or what specific administrative policies will guide your um, resources. Now, it's important to always remember that community participation is key. So you have to engage your stakeholders in the planning process. Okay, programs fail when they are top-down only, meaning if they're dictatorial and they are not co-managed. So you must involve all levels of the LGU, your barangay leaders, and of course, the citizens or the residents of your community. Okay, so again, your principles, it should be community-led. The core implementers should be members of the community also. Your support staff should also be part of the community, and it should be enabling. So the LGU should provide support by providing your policy or your budget. Now you can have external partners as well as internal partners. So your internal partners are members of the community. External partners can be the national organizations or the local organizations. And your intersectoral can involve other agencies that are not directly linked to the DOH, such as your DepEd for school strategies, no, or strategies based on the school or the social welfare or the DSWD. So in this slide, you see the logical framework or the log frame, which is a systematic tool to visualize program components. This is just a tool for you when you look at your plan. Okay, so in terms of planning, again, the resources, you look at the input, what activity it is, what is your intended output, and what is the outcome or overall impact that you want to do. So again, this is just a tool that you can also use. Okay. Next, we have monitoring and evaluation. So what's the difference between the two? So monitoring is done during implementation. Its purpose is to track progress and operational efficiency. And it answers the question, are we doing things right? Whereas your evaluation is done at the end. of a specific intervention or strategy, and it measures your impact and effectiveness. Did we do the right thing? Okay. So, for example, monitoring, you count the number of attendees in a seminar in the same way that we check your attendance. And then for evaluation, you probably look at decreased incidence. And for you guys, it's your long exam. So that's another way of looking at it. Now, what are the components if you want to do your monitoring and evaluation plan? Of course, you have to identify your indicators, which we will go into in a minute. You identify where you're going to get your indicators, what's your data source, how frequently are you going to do your monitoring or evaluation, and who will be responsible for that. Okay, so for example, you want to look at hypertension again, your indicator is the number of adults screened. So you look at the logbook, you basically just count how many are screened monthly, and this is to be done by your BHW coordinator or a leader. Now, your evaluation findings must inform the next situational analysis. You don't just do this and then set it aside. For your next plan, since some of the LGUs do this on an annual basis, it should dictate what comes next, or if you want to change strategies or activities, or if you want to continue. So I mentioned indicators. So these are measurable variables that show if objectives are met. It can be process indicators, output indicators, outcome indicators, or impact indicators. So again, in terms of your hypertension, your process indicators can be in how many activities were completed, such as your screening sessions, can be an output, meaning your direct products, an outcome, which is a change in status, and a long-term effect, which can relate to your morbidity, mortality, incidence, or prevalence. Now, as a rule, as a general rule, there should be at least one indicator per objective. Now, this is, I think, logical and fair, especially since per objective, you're basically aiming for an outcome. So there should, again, be at least one. So there can be many indicators. Okay, so again, just to refresh your memory about the Gantt chart. So this is also a component of your program plan in which it is a visual schedule of activity. So I won't go into this in detail since you've already done this with your research. Basically the same. So the Gantt chart is also used in program planning just so you can look at the progress and your timeline. Okay, so para may guide kayo as to the deadlines, etc. Now, all is well and good in planning, but what are the challenges you have to face? Of course, you have your GIDA areas or geographically isolated and disadvantaged areas. So, due to the difficulty in accessing this, there can be hassles or problems with your plan or your implementation. And again, with the devolved healthcare system wherein health is managed by the LGUs, there could be varying quality and inconsistencies across municipalities. There's also the hazard or the difficulty in terms of cultural beliefs. So there are resistance to certain healthcare interventions that we have to face. Okay? And lastly, as you well know by now, no, the politics is a very huge challenge in the Philippines. Okay, so how do we apply um, your program planning in the Philippines? So these are just some examples. So for example, your TB control program or the National Tuberculosis Control, its strategy is the DOTS or the Directly Observed Treatment or Treatment Short Course program or activity which aims to detect and cure TB cases to interrupt transmission. And the community aspect or the stakeholder engagement is the establishment of treatment partners, which are usually a family member of BHW who check that the patient actually gets their medicine daily. So, chinecheck talaga nila if iniinom and then they record. Now, If you remember the logical framework, so this is the logic model as applied to the TB Dots program. So the inputs are as follows, and the activities, outputs, and the income. Another example is your Operation Timbang Plus, which identified the problem of high rate of stunting and wasting or malnutrition among preschoolers. And their action was to do annual mass weighing and height measurement to identify those who are malnourished. So what are their interventions? They provided supplementation and education and even established a gulayan or backyard gardening to enhance the nutrition or the accessibility to nutritious food in the community. And how will they evaluate? So they want to look at the change in nutritional status after the 120-day intervention period. Last but not the least is a National Dengue Prevention and Control Program, and you're probably familiar with the 4S strategy. Okay? Now, in terms of stakeholder engagement and or mobilizing the community, they implemented Action Barangay, which consisted of the 4 o'clock habit and the dengue brigades. Okay? Now, why this works is because they looked at dengue. It's not just a health problem or disease; it's an environmental problem, and it requires the help of everybody in the community. So to summarize, okay, so these are actually the common elements that we saw in all the models and the examples. You start with the diagnosis, then the prioritization, the design, the planning, action, and the monitoring and evaluation. And always remember that you should plan programs based on evidence. You set smart objectives. And as much as possible, you design activities or strategies that involve the community, not just the healthcare workers. And always monitor and evaluate, especially if it's not working. It Your plan should be ready to adapt or change at any moment. Okay, so public health is the art and science of preventing disease, prolonging life, and promoting health through the organized efforts of society and not just one individual. Here are my key references. Concludes the lecture. If you have any questions, you may email me at any time or message me at Canvas.